Helen Keller was both blind and deaf, but she wasn't always that way. As an infant, she could see and hear everything around her. Helen was born on June 27, 1880, in Tuscumbia, Alabama, a little town in the northwestern corner of the state. The small two-room cottage where she was born was covered with vines and climbing flowers. The cottage was part of the Keller family estate. Helen's grandfather had bought the land many years earlier. Over time, the place became known as Ivy Green because ivy covered the main house and the trees and fences that were around it. Helen's father, Arthur, loved to tell stories and was very sociable. He would often invite friends to stay for long visits at Ivy Green. Arthur came from a family with strong Southern roots, and he was even related to the American South's most famous general, Robert E. Lee. Arthur had been a captain in the Confederate Army during the American Civil War as well. What was the American Civil War? The American Civil War was fought from 1861 to 1865. The Union, representing the northern states, battled against the Confederacy, which consisted of 11 southern states that wanted to form their own country. The sides disagreed about slavery, and the war was one of the bloodiest conflicts in the history of the United States. In 1877, Arthur's first wife, Sarah, died. He now had 2 nearly grown sons named William and James to raise on his own. 1 year later, he married Kate Adams, Helen's mother. Kate, a young educated woman from Memphis, Tennessee, was a true Southern belle. Her father had been a brigadier general in the Confederate Army, but she was related to some of the most influential families in the North. That connection shaped many of her beliefs. What is a Southern belle? A young woman from the South of the United States. A Southern belle often comes from a wealthy background. Like many Southerners, Arthur lost most of his money during the Civil War. To earn a living after the war, he grew cotton and became editor of the local newspaper. To help make ends meet, Kate grew her own fruits and vegetables, raised livestock, and also made her own butter and lard. The family's fortunes didn't improve until 1885, when President Grover Cleveland appointed Arthur as Marshal of Alabama. One bright spot during the years of hardship was the birth of Helen, the couple's first child. In many ways, Helen took after her mother. She had the same soft golden curls and pale blue eyes, and she had also inherited Kate's intelligence. Helen loved to imitate others, and at just 6 months old, she was repeating things she'd heard people say, such as "hadai" and "TTT." She also said "wawa" for water. Physically, Helen was flourishing too. On her first birthday, Helen didn't just take her first steps. She ran. Helen would later recall how she chased the flickering shadows of leaves that danced in the sunlight. The jaunt ended quickly, though, and Helen plonked back down to the ground. Crying, she reached out for her mother's protective arms. Did you know one of Helen's ancestors was the first teacher of the deaf in Zurich, Switzerland? He even wrote a book about how to teach deaf people. Then, one February day, when she was just over 18 months old, Helen got sick. For several days, she slept, plagued by a high fever. The family doctor came to examine her, and he told her family that she had acute congestion of the stomach and brain. He didn't know if Helen would live. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the fever went away. Helen's family was happy and relieved. Their baby, they thought, was going to be okay.